Hey crafters, Big D here, and this week we're doing something a little different. We're painting a miniature. Hey crafters, Big D here. First off, quick apology. I've got a little bit of a head cold here, so my throat's a little hot. So I'm going to try and speak up, but I apologize if you see me sniffle a little bit. Sorry I haven't been around for a couple weeks. I've had some health problems going on in the family. We had a car accident. My wife is okay, but she's got some back problems, and just things have been kind of crazy, so I really haven't had a time to sit down and do big crafting projects. I still have my Ultimate Killteam board in process. I've had to back off parts of it because, well, I'll have a video about that later, actually. But for this week's video, which we're trying to get back on track here, my son gifted me with a really cool figure. Now, I play 40K, I also play Killteam, but for 40K I play a group called Death Guard, which are these really gross, diseased dudes. Their two big leaders, he gave me Typhus, who's their second overall in charge guy. And I've had a lot of questions on Reddit about how I paint figures. So I put my pictures up of the things I've been painting. I got a lot of positive feedback on that. So I figured, you know, I run a YouTube channel. Maybe I should paint it on camera. The problem is I'm not a pro painter. I'm really okay. I have no illusions. I don't do edge highlighting. I don't do panel lighting. I don't use a lot of like fancy tools. I use basic brushes, simple paints, washes, some basic techniques, simple stuff. I find that the Citadel painting scheme, the way they instruct you to do them, I find that that works pretty well for what I'm trying to do. My goal is to take a figure, paint it up, and put it on the table. And if I'm doing it for a role-playing game, have my players go, "Whoa, that's pretty cool." And if I put it on a table in an army, people go, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And then we play the game. I'm looking for table impressive miniatures. I'm not going to go to Crystal Brush. I'm not going to win a Golden Demon. I'm not that kind of painter. I don't do non-metallic metallics. I don't do object source lighting. I don't work with oil washes or pastels or any of that. I'm pretty basic, but I go for good looks. I want figures to be wow when you look at them. So, but not have to worry about, you know, someone picks a figure up and then drops it. And, oh no, it's whatever. It's a classic mini. I spent like 2 hours painting it. It's fine. And that's the other thing. I'm kind of a fast painter. The Typhus, you're going to see actual paint time from prime on the figure to finishing the miniature. About 4.5, maybe 5 hours total. I did the base the day before because Milliput needs to cure. But other than that, the actual paint time, less than 6 hours total. And that's waiting for things to dry in between and getting distracted, doing other things, working on other pieces of my Death Guard army at the same time. So, take it as you will. Again, this isn't a pro painter. This isn't, you know, I'm not Sam Lenz. I'm not Miniac. I'm not one of these top-notch, really great painters. I fall well into the category of I'm a good painter. So I don't go a lot into the detail or the techniques I use. I kind of talk about what I'm going to do, and then I come back and show you what it looks like after it's done. So I think what I'm going to put up is entertaining. But I want to hear from you guys. This is new for me. I've never thought about it. I actually had someone suggested to me to do a video. So this is what I'm doing it on. If you guys find this interesting, comment below. If you're reading this on Reddit, comment there. Let me know. Let me know if you want to see more. Let me know if you want to see more detail. If you want to see me do some of my technique breakdowns. I don't mind doing that. I don't think of my technique as that big a deal. I'm just an average guy painting a figure that looks pretty okay. So, but I'd love to hear your feedback. I mean, I do this to share. So if you guys want me to share more, tell me. I've got some Space Wolves I'm going to be painting. I've got some AdMech I'm working on. Adeptus Mechanicus for non-40k players. They're robot priests of Mars. They're robot guys. They're crazy cool. So I'm going to be doing some of them. I did my zombies for the Zombie Apocalypse game using a bunch of the figures from a Zombicide game. I do other figures. I just happen to be doing a lot of Warhammer 40k and Killteam figures right now. But like my wife and I are working on some Age of Sigmar figures too. Kind of getting into that. So again, tell me what you want to see, and tell me if you want more details. You want to see closer up. You want to see the actual, me putting the brush on the figure type stuff. If you're interested in that, great. Let me know and we'll do it. But either way, I need to know what you think. So comment here, comment on Reddit, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me hear you. Let's see what we can do to make this all more entertaining for everyone involved. So tell me what you think, and we're off to paint Typhus, the Herald of Nurgle. Alright, crafters, so here he is. This is Typhus. He is going to become the new leader of my Death Guard army. It was a gift from my son, who knows how much I love this figure, and how much he'll fit in until I get Mortarion. So, for those of you that aren't Warhammer 40k players, he's a leader type. He's like second in command over all the entire army. He's a named figure, so he's a kind of a cool dude. Now you can see on the box art how they kind of have him painted, and that is not the way I'm going to entirely paint him. I'm going to get close, but there are some very definite details I will be doing differently. So you get him out of the box. He comes on 2 sprues. I've already assembled him mostly. The flies and whatnot I'm going to assemble separately, paint them separately, and then glue them on. So these I've got separated for right now. Now, I've already done his base, and if you've watched my channel, you've seen how I make my bases. So I'm doing him in the same style here. The difference is I went into the box of skulls, and I've embedded a couple skulls into his clay. And this piece is actually part of the miniature itself, and I embedded it in there, and that's where his other foot's going to sit. So that's how he's going to sit on the base. So I got a couple worms, I've got couple of my little pustules, and some skulls buried in, and I've got actually kind of a couple deeper recesses that I'm going to put some other details on. And when this is dry, we'll get it painted, and we'll go through the process of how I actually paint this thing. Because I do got different details than I normally do. But now, I've got Mr. Typhus himself. And he has already been primed in a nice, very light coat of black. I prefer to paint on black or on white, depending on the figure. I know some people actually use the cans that have the colored paint in them on top of this, or they'll paint them instead of a primer. I know that's what Warhammer TV does. I like the black first, because there are some parts I may not want to get that green all over. I could have assembled him in a little bit less assemblies, but after kind of snapping them together and dry fitting, it looked like for the most part I wasn't going to have much difficulty except for the bug parts. So I've got them set aside, and the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to take a shade brush. That's what Warhammer TV calls them. I'm going to take a medium-sized brush, and we're going to get our wet palette, and we're going to put some Death Guard green on there, and we're going to give all the armored parts of him a nice coat of the base Death Guard green. So let me get that set up, and we'll take a peek. Okay, so I have our wet palette, and we've got some water, and we're just gonna take a little bit of this Death Guard green, and we're just gonna do a nice solid coat of the green over all of the armored parts. So here we are, one coat in, and I kind of wanted to show at this stage. You know, we put one coat of the Death Guard green on them, and it's not perfect coverage. And you need to remember that if you're putting on your paint thin enough, you're watering your paint down, you're actually using some Lamy medium or matte medium, whatever, but you're using something to water down that paint. Having a wet palette helps too, but you're putting on 2-3 thin coats to get full coverage. So that's an important thing, because if you're putting on too thick, you're working against your miniature, you're working against your detail. And especially in the case of, say, Games Workshop and the miniatures they make, you want to use the detail, because they make really fabulous minis. I mean, I love the detail on these minis. I love they make them big and cartoony, and there's lots of detail and lots of little greebles and stuff to just really make that figure look great. So use thinned paints, thin it down. Don't be afraid to do 2-3 coats of your base color. So it's gonna look like crap after that first coat. That's okay. So go ahead and let that dry, and then put that second coat on there. It doesn't take long to dry between coats. Just remember, keep thinning it down. Don't put it on there super thick. It'll gum your figure up, and you don't want that. You want to show these off and make them look good. So we're gonna get, I think we're pretty good so far with how much paint we've still got in there, so I don't need to add any more of the Death Guard green, so I'll probably be able to use what I got there, and I can put this away for now. Keep in mind that we're going to be using lots of this again for touch-ups, so that's the other thing. Don't worry about being too perfect. You can be a little messy like I am here, because you're going to be putting other colors in there. It's a back and forth process. So get your second base coat on, get your figure nice and fully coated with its main color, and then we're going to move on to the next sets of details. So let me get my second coat on there, and we're going to move on to the next color. Alright, so the green's where I want it to be. They're a little, parts a little thinner, a little darker, a little recessed, a little darker. That's okay. That's going to look good with the shade, and that's going to add some more depth to the color. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of Nurgling green, and I just want to get that Nurgling solid base coat over the green that's already got on there. I want to get it this Nurgling green, which is a lighter shade. And it'll make more sense after I've done a couple things to understand why I'm doing this first. But we're going to do the Nurgling next, which we're going to do the Nurgling green, and then after it's been Nurgled, we're going to give it a shading with Beeltan green. So it's going to make it kind of a stark, darker green, but it'll be on this lighter version. It'll make sense when you see the colors put together. So again, Nurgling green, gonna get the Nurgling green. So I'll be right back after we get him a nice coat. Okay, so we've got our Nurgling. We painted it the Nurgling green to make it a lighter color, and then we gave it a nice heavy wash of Beeltan green, making it much darker and getting a really nice deep rich green into the recesses. Now the reason I'm doing it now is because, again, this isn't how I do every figure, but for this army, my Death Guard, this is kind of the recipe I use for them. So I've got him based in black. I've put his Death Guard green on him, and then if there's anything that needs to be a slightly different green or whatnot, in this case it's a Nurgling, let's get right on the figure. I paint him in full Nurgling green and then give it a dark green tone to it. The next step is to get my highlights onto this screen. I use dry brushing, so I got my dry brush, and I'm going to take my Nurgling green, and I'm just going to put a little bit on the outside of my palette here, just a little bit, and get my brush, just put a little tiny bit of my brush on there, and then have something to wipe it off on, and then going to give the figure a pretty thorough dry brushing in the green, and that'll get the color I want it to be and the highlights I want, and then I can go about painting the rest of the figure. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to come back, take a look at it, then we're going to start on the next color. Okay, so we've got our dry brushing done, so we've now got some really nice variations in the green there, and that's going to look great once we get to the shading process. So we've got now a really good looking Death Guard leader. So let's get cracking. On that knee, you'll see there's a bone sticking out of there, and he's got this huge backpack piece that's like all of bone. So we're gonna paint that next. So I'm gonna take some Xandri dust, and I'm going to give it a base coat in Xandri dust. And then after we do the Xandri dust and that dries, I'm going to probably give it a layer of Ushtabi bone and then highlight it in Screaming Skull. So I'm just going to base Xandri, give it a good layer of Ushtabi, and then just highlighting a little bit in Screaming Skull. So I'm going to get on that, and then we'll come back. Okay, I'm really liking how that layering came out, and getting a very nice bone-like color to that. I forgot also, there's a skull on his belt too, so I did that in the same way. Again, just Xandri dust as a base coat, let that dry, then do a layer of Ushtabi bone, let that dry, and then just do a slight highlight, just going over the higher edges with some Screaming Skull, and that'll give you some nice layering of your colors there, and you get a really nice bone effect. So the next step we're going to do, we are going to go in there and go after some corn red. We're going to do, there's some cloth here under the shoulders, there's a loin cloth, he's got a piece of butt flap there, and we're going to start with that. So we're going to get the corn red. We're also going to potentially get a little into the eye slots there, but we're going to get that red cloth. You want to kind of work in layers, and since the cloth is the back end of a lot of that stuff, we're going to get the corn red in there next. We'll probably edge that with a brighter red. I'm actually, I try to use a lot of just Citadel, but I do have some other paints that I really do enjoy, and I've got some Vallejo. So after I do the corn red and that dries, I'm going to probably edge and highlight it with a Vallejo flat red. So we're going to put some red in there and come back and look at it again. Okay, we got the corn red on there, and that's going to take a little bit to dry. Not long, not a lot in there. But while we're waiting for it to dry before we do the red highlighting on there, I'm going to take some Kislev flesh, and I'm going to go over his sores and I'm going to go over the handle of the Reaper to make it look like it's been wrapped in human skin. Because, you know, Death Guard. So, I'm going to touch up a little of that. Again, don't be afraid to be a little messy sometimes. I mean, you want to be careful, but remember, you can always go back and touch things up. So, make sure you get everything you want the color you need it to be. So, we're going to get some Kids Love Flesh on there, and then highlight, and we'll be back. Okay, so we've got a few more details done. I did the wood. I actually kind of decided on the fly. I did it with a Xandri Dust base, and then highlighted it in Dawnstone to give it kind of a grayish, sickly color to it. When we wash it, that'll all kind of come together. That'll look pretty tight. So the next step is we're going to start picking out some details. And again, I always do this by color. So I think we're going to go off the hoses next. And those are going to be done in a layer of Eshin Gray. Because I want them to look black, but I don't want them to be black because I want them to see depths there. So we're going to do them in Eshin Gray. And we're not going to do highlights on them. But when we wash them, we're going to wash them in Nuln Oil to make them really kind of stand out. We've done the flesh. We did a coat of the flesh in the Brackhearth flesh, and then we highlighted it with some Screaming Skull. Did it with the little guts there and with the pox on his body. Found a few more horns, so while I was in there I got them all neatly tied up. Now you'll note that there's some parts where the green's a little sticking out there. We're gonna take some Nurgling green and kind of touch up those edges when we get in there before we do our washes. So we're not gonna worry about tidying it up just yet. So really the next step, like I said, is get in there and do these hoses, the hose underneath here, and look for other hoses like the ones that aren't made of flesh. And if we come across the details with the flesh, we go back in and we give them a cover of the Brackhearth flesh with Screaming Skull highlights. You could also use Flayed One flesh too. The Screaming Skull, pretty close in color. They're both pretty good for that. So we're going to highlight these pipes and do these pipes. And then after that, we're going to start on the metallics. So let's go get at it. Okay, so we've got our all metallics done, we've got our details done, we're ready to start shades and washes. Meanwhile, we've also gotten the back details, the cloud supplies. They are all, we've got them based here in a nice bright blue. We'll take the colors up and down from there, but the nice blue will be a nice recess color for them. So we'll let them dry, and we're going to get the shades. So for the shades, we're going to need Agrax Earth Shade, Ogren Camo Shade, Druchii Violet, we need a bunch of different shades. So we'll start with the big one, which is going to be the Agrax Earth Shade. So let's get that one out first and start getting liberal with the figure with this one. Okay, so we've got our Agrax, we've got a nice medium-sized brush, and we're going to give all of the horns, bones, all of the greens, and pretty much everything except the hoses and skin, a shade of that. So Agrax will be pretty much anything non-metallic, non-flesh. So bones and everything else but I get Agrax on it all, and you want to be pretty liberal with it. We're trying to get this kind of a grimy look to everything. So give it a coat and we'll come back. So here we go, nice and grimy. That Agrax Earthshade really brings out the detail, adds tones, adds layers. Really does a great job making this figure really pop. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to take some Athonian Camo Shade and go over that Nurgling with a heavy coat of that to really darken and bring out his lines and his greens. Then we're going to take the Druchii Violet just a little bit, and we're just going to touch on the little wounds, the little pox marks on our guy, and we're going to touch on the hoses that are made of flesh. We're going to give them some of the Druchii Violet. And then lastly, we're going to take some Nuln Oil and just take some of the bronze. I'm sorry, not some of the bronze, some of the silver. And we're just going to give it some Nuln just to darken it rather than making it look just grimy. So, Nuln on silver, Druchii on flesh, and Athonian on our little Nurgly friend there. Make him stand out. Okay, so while we are waiting for our shades to dry, we're going to start work on the bugs. So we're going to take some Fenrisian Gray. Just need a little bit of it. And we are going to do, just like we did with the Nurgling Green, we're going to take our blue strands here and we're going to give them a pretty thorough dry brushing. So get some on the brush, wipe off most of it, and then go to town and get them really nicely dry brushed. Okay, so they've taken that nice dry brush of pale grayish blue, and they're looking really sharp. Now we want to really bring out the bugs. So the next step is I'm going to take some Gene Stealer Purple. Now I know in the art they show the bugs as being blackish or dark reddish, but I like working a little purple in with the green. I think it looks really good together. So I'm actually going to take some Gene Stealer Purple and I'm going to try and go in and make all the bugs wings purple, and then the bodies I'm going to probably work a darker shade of purple. I have to look and see what I have, but I'll work a darker shade of purple for the bodies. So the bodies will be mainly dark purple and the wings will be a pale purple. So let me get cracking on that and we'll come back. Our dirty boy is nearly dry and he's looking really good. I'm not sure if I'm really happy with how the contrast on that Nurgling. It's just not sticking out enough next to the armor. So I think I might dry brush it with some white, or give it a heavier shade. Go back with the Biltan Green and give it a new fresh coat of that. So we'll take a look and see what the shading looks like and then maybe do both. So again, purples, greens, put the two together, it's going to look really great. So we're almost done. Considering this has basically been one night's work, I'm really happy. So I am very happy with how these came out. We did them with a purple, and then we did them with a light Gene Stealer Flesh Purple, and then went back with the Fenrisian Gray and gave the whole thing another quick, tiny dry brushing. And now we're just going to give them a heavy shade of Druchii Violet. And then after that dries, I'm going to touch them up with some Stormhold Silver. Just kind of touch the edges of the wings and whatnot with that. Just kind of make them a little sparkly and shiny. So we're going to darken these guys up and really bring out the detail and get them glued in place. And then when we come back, we're going to be working on the base. And there we go. Base all done. Standard way we've been doing our Nurgle bases all along. Got our little worms, got our pus things on there, got a couple skulls embedded in, a little bit of Nurgle rot to make it look gross, and we've got a finished Typhus. Those purple and bluish flies on the back, flying around off his hive, and that's just a great looking fig, and that is what I'll be happy to stick on the table and be ready to do battle. So, thank you all for joining me to this. If y'all like it, please comment below, subscribe, and yeah, if you want to see more of these, just say so. I've got a few other armies I paint, and I can show you my quick and easy table method. So, until next time, game on!